Morning all and welcome to the webinar series organized by Additional Skill Acquisition Program under the Department of Higher Education. Cochin Port is one of the largest ports in India, working with the mission of providing dependable, cost-effective port services. This webinar, titled as Port and Shipping, an Ocean of Opportunities, will be discussing about the prospects available in the fields of marine cargo services and shipping cruise facilities, etc. Dr. M. Beena, IAS, Chairperson of Cochin Port Trust, and a doctor by profession, is with us today. Beena ma'am belongs to the Kerala cadre of Indian Administrative Services from the 1999 batch. She was the Managing Director, KSIDC, and CEO Smart City Trivandrum prior to joining Cochin Port Trust. She was also the Managing Director to the Roads and Bridges Development Corporation, Vaitala Mobility Hub, Kerala Books and Publications Limited, and Food and Supply Co. During her service period, she had multi-dimensional experience in various sectors like infrastructure development, transportation, industrial development, airport cargo handling, financial services, and so on. Without much delay, let me welcome Dr. M. Beena IAS to this online platform. Welcome you, ma'am.
Thank you, Tiara. It is a pleasure to interact with you.
Yes.
Thank you for welcoming me to this webinar. I'm so happy to be with you and also happy to be associated with ASAP program. Thank you. So, I'm, as has been introduced, I am Dr. Beena. I took charge of Cochin Port as First Lady Chairperson of Cochin Port. This was in October 2018. And I will, in today's session, what I plan to do is I want you to get some interface of the sector as such. Because I know that this is, though we have heard very vaguely about port and cargo and all that, not too many people, at least in the state of Kerala, know it in greater detail. So I'll just start off with a historical perspective. Now, when you visualize ships, you normally visualize these foreign big liners. But were you aware that India, as far back as 2500 BC, that is, as part of the Indus Valley civilization, we had a port called Lothal. And as on today also, the remains of the Lothal port and the inscriptions in the coins, it shows that India was a major maritime community as far back as 2500 BC. And we had ties with Persia and many foreign countries. Now, coming back down south, in fact, also Bombay was a very important shipbuilding destination. In coming to modern or rather medieval India, around 1600s and 1700s. So when the British East India Company came to India, before they had established themselves as a political power, the Wadiyas of Bombay, they had constructed ships which were sold to the English East India. 100 plus vessels were sold by India to Europe. But because of the British domination, a lot of these things were suppressed, and post-independence, we are trying to make a big revival in the port and maritime sector. Now to Cochin Port, the origin of Cochin Port actually goes to 1341 AD. You might have all heard of Cranganore or Busiris, which was the original port. Now in AD 1341, what happened is, the river Periyar, which used to, it is when river Periyar meets the sea that the port was developed. So the river Periyar, there was a big deluge and it sort of changed the course. So the Busiris was submerged and Kochi opened. So that was the birth of Kochi as a port. The modern port was developed between 1920 to 1940. You must have all heard of Robert Bristow and Cochin Saga, because he's the father of Cochin Port. In fact, that work was done in the period 1920 to 1940. And Cochin Port was declared as a major port under Government of India in 1936. Cochin Port has two major wharfs. One is the Matancheri Wharf and the Ernakulam Wharf. The Ernakulam Wharf was commissioned in 1964. That is post-independence. As on today, the administration of Cochin Port rests with the board. That is the Cochin Port Trust Board, of which I am holding charge as the chairperson. Cochin Port has a lot of importance, a lot of geostrategic importance. In a sense, we are locationally very close to the main shipping channels of the world. We are just 11 nautical miles from the Gulf Singapore Channel and 76 nautical miles from the 9-degree channel from Europe to the Far East. So that will explain a lot of what is the potential of Cochin Port. I will come back. I'll come back to that point later. Now let me go into the area of shipbuilding and cargo. See, when you speak the word cargo, most often you will be thinking of a lorry carrying cargo. But as far as Indian trade is concerned, 90% of India's trade by volume and 70% by value is carried through the maritime sector, that is through the ports of the country. India has 7,500 kilometers, very long coastline, and therefore, because of the long coastline, we have several ports, out of which 12 ports are the major ports, of which Cochin is one. In fact, if you look at the older ports, we have Bombay, we have Calcutta, we have Chennai, and Cochin. These are the older ports. And later, during various stages, the newer ports were developed. As on today, we have 12 major ports. There are also around 200 non-major ports or minor ports, as they were earlier called, because the major ports belong to the Government of India and the minor ports belong to the state government. So, these are the ports of India. Coming to ships. Now, ships are basically, we have three cargo carrying ships. So, one is the bulk cargo carrying ships. So, bulk cargo means cargo which is not what do you call it? It is not containerized. It is not put into what do you call it? It is not packaged. That is the bulk cargo. Then we have container ships, which are the most modern ships. We also have liquid carrying ships, that is the oil, the crude. It comes through. These are the tanker ships. Now, to visualize this logistics supply chain, you have to first visualize a factory where there is manufacturing. Now, in this factory, something is made. Now, it has to be exported. Now, how does it happen? It can happen through three routes. So, one is it can be loaded onto a wagon in the railways, and through the rail network, it can reach a port. Most of the ports in India have rail sites. That means through rail, it can directly reach the port. Another option is road, which, as I mentioned earlier, which is what you see. You see all these container lorries or cargo lorries carrying it from the place of manufacture to the port. A third and a very important link that is being given a lot of focus by the government, because we don't want container lorries to congest the roads. So we are trying to bring them into the waterway. So India has a long navigable inland waterways of 14,500 kilometers. Now a lot of money is now being invested by the government of India to make these navigable, so that we have three modes of transportation: road, rail, and water. So through these three modes, it reaches the port. Now from the port, it can, if from Cochin, let us say I want to export it to Europe, then I will I will send it by a mainline vessel, which is an international kind of vessel. Now, suppose I don't want to send it to Europe. I just want to send it to, let's say, Mumbai. From Cochin, I want to send it to Mumbai. So that kind of vessel or that kind of voyage is called a coastal shipping. Now, there is also a third different concept of shipping, that is transshipment. So by transshipment, what is meant is that, see, I have a cargo which comes into Kochi, but I am not taking it in Kochi. So that means the cargo originates elsewhere and it goes elsewhere. The only thing that happens is from one vessel, it changes over to another vessel. So that is where you have this transshipment where these mother vessels come in. Small feeder vessels from various ports of India will come and feed on to the mothership, and the mothership can go to the foreign countries. So these are the basic concepts of shipping. Now, you must have heard of the word container. Now, frankly, the word container is something relatively new to the state of Kerala, because it was in 2010 that we came up with the container transshipment terminal. So though we were handling containers earlier, the scale increased after the creation of the ICTT, or the International Container Transshipment Terminal. Basically, containerization, if you look at the history of cargo shipping, if you can point out what is one major change which has sort of revolutionized the way you look at shipping. So imagine something, let us say rice or wheat, how it used to be transported earlier. So earlier, the entire rice or wheat in huge quantities was taken in a ship who had this hollow space inside. So it required so much of manpower to put it in that and then to take it out. So now we have this very sleek and modern system whereby it is loaded onto containers, and these containers, now the containers give a lot of advantages. One, the manual labor is done away with. The only manual labor is to sort of hook and unhook the container. Then there is uniform size. Normally the size of containers are, you must have heard the word TEU. That is 20 feet equivalent unit. That is a standard size of a container. But we have 20 foot containers. We also have 40 feet containers. And so there is a uniform size. Every container can be traced based on a uniform by a unique numbering. It has really revolutionized shipping in the sense, earlier if a bulk cargo vessel were to come to a ship to unload its contents, it would take at least 5 days. Now, with the help of containerization, the same volume of cargo can be unloaded within a period of a few hours. So that is the importance of containers. And we have different types of ships based on the quantity of cargo they can carry, based on their size. We have very large crude carriers, ultra large crude carriers, Suezmax, Panamax, Neomax, Megamax, Mega Panamax. So basically, these sizes are based on because we have these important shipping channels, which are the bottlenecks of the shipping circuits all over the world. So if a ship can cross a certain channel, you say that is, let us say the ship can cross the Suez canal. It is as big as that, so you call it the Suezmax. Or if it is a Panama Max, it's a Panama canal. So basically, there are various names floating around. So I'm just mentioning it so that if you hear these names, you can relate that they relate to the size of the ships. Now, coming to what Government of India is endeavoring to do by giving a lot of importance to shipping sector. So that is why my topic today is shipping and ports, an ocean of opportunity. The opportunity comes because India realizes that to become a 5 trillion economy, India needs to invest further in the ports and the maritime sector. Because as I mentioned earlier, since 90% of our trade happens through these channels, unless these channels are more efficient, unless there is cargo transfer faster, unless there is the right infrastructure, unless you have a good machinery there, you will not be able to achieve economic progress. So that is why Government of India has come up with a very ambitious program called Sagarmala. Now, Sagarmala has four major pillars. So the first pillar is port modernization and new port development. So basically, the ports have to be modernized, new equipment, new infrastructure, and whatever are the infrastructural bottlenecks that need to be corrected. Now, it's not enough that the port is good. So unless there is good connectivity between the place of origin or the place of consumption and the port, there is no use. So you will be chalked up on the roads. So that is why there is the second pillar is port connectivity enhancement. So this means better roads, better rails, better inland waterways connectivity. Now the third pillar is port-linked industrialization. So this is a relatively new concept because see logically, if my raw material is to be imported from or if my product is to be exported immediately outside, then it makes a lot of sense for me to establish my industry at or near a port. So the government is envisaging that ports shall lead the industrialization process. So that is port-linked or port-led industrialization. The fourth pillar is coastal community development. So whatever are these initiatives, whatever are these new developments, unless we keep the coastal community, unless you make them a stakeholder, and unless the positive returns go to them, it will be very difficult to ensure their play. So that is the fourth pillar or coastal community development. Now, apart from carrying of cargo, a port also plays an important role in the protection of the country. Normally, the word port and protection, it is difficult to put. So let me explain. You might have heard of an incident sometime 10, 15 years back when a container of counterfeit currency came to Ujjain. So basically, by by ensuring that the cargo which comes, ensuring that there's no counterfeit currency, there is no hawala currency. So that way, by ensuring that protection, we are ensuring the protection of the economy of the country. We are also ensuring the protection of the health of the country. How? So suppose there are these foreign plant material or let us say meat with zoonotic diseases. And if that comes and floods the Indian market, again, we are exposing our population to various health hazards. So, economy of the country, the health of the country, and number three is human trafficking. I'm sure you have all heard of container filled with humans being trapped. So basically, in the port, it is the customs department which really looks at the protection aspect. It is what is inside the container. It is looked into by the customs and they ensure that these kind of things do not happen. Now, ports also have a relevance in the sea. So you have heard the term blue economy. Blue economy means the economic activities and the ecology interlinked to ensure for sustainable ocean development and economic progress linked to ocean. Now, let us say shipping is one of the major activities which is happening in the blue economy. And as part of shipping, there might be pollution. For shipping, we do dredging. So all this has an impact on the flora and fauna of the sea. And fishing is something which is very closely related to the port community. So there's always, when our vessel goes in, the fishing vessel comes in. So there is all, we need to coexist in a mutually beneficial manner. For this, there are a lot of regulations internationally so that there is no pollution, the flora and fauna is protected. So these international regulations are called MARPOL regulations. Okay. Now let me also explain. If you come inside a port, you will find certain departments. So what are these departments? Now, in Cochin Port, I can say there is a most important department is the marine department. What is a marine department? See, basically, marine department is what happens in the water. So once a foreign vessel comes in, a pilot boat from Cochin Port goes to the outer harbour, and once the port limits are crossed, our pilot then boards on this foreign vessel, and within the port, the port offers pilotage services. Now, once the vessel reaches the berth, then our mooring crew will ensure that it is taken safely to the wharf. In between, we have the tugs, which ensure that the impact of the ship colliding with the or coming, so that there is a controlled approach of the ship that is ensured by the tug. So these activities all come in the marine part of the port. Then there is the mechanical engineering department. So what the mechanical engineering department does is the cranes which unload the cargo, and all the machinery associated with the ports are taken care by the engineering department. Then there is also the traffic department, which is more or less like the brain of the port, which ensures that which vessel should come to which berth, how to avoid smooth voyage, how to ensure that one ship does not get into the path of the other. That is done by the traffic department. We also have the fire department to protect ourselves against any fire hazards or anything. We also have the finance department and administrative department which supports. So this is an overview of the various departments of the port. Now, there are when it comes to vessels, you have the ocean-going vessels, or which I said are the international vessels. You have the coastal vessels, which travel from one port in the country to another. You have tugs and support crafts. So I said the tugs, the mooring crew, the pilot boat, all these are called as the support crafts. Then there is an important kind of vessel, especially important for Cochin, because it is one port with a heavy siltation. This is called the dredger. So dredger takes out the silt from the port. There are two different kinds of dredgers. There is a grab hopper dredger. There is also the suction dredger. And then this dredge material is released to a site which is identified under the environmental law or the environmental clearance given to the port. So these are the kind of activities which happen in the port. Now, these activities, I have explained these activities because some of you might be looking at careers in this sector. So you have navigational staff which actually go to sea and they control or they sort of drive the ship. Then you have the engineering staff. So every ship will also have a marine engineer, a mechanical engineer, who will ensure that the ship's engine works full time. Plus, there is a lower level. This is the crew. The crew means the lower level jobs. We call them seamen. They will do all the other jobs of the ship, including fitters, welders, or ITI graduates normally do that. A very new sector has opened up, which I have not mentioned till now. That is the cruise vessels. You might have seen newspaper reports of very big cruise vessels coming into Cochin Port. In fact, the largest vessel in India to reach India, that is the Spectrum of the Seas, which is the fourth largest cruise ship in the world, that had come to India, come to Cochin Port last season. So cruise vessels have a lot of importance from the employment point of view, because a cruise vessel with, let us say, 5,000 guests will have around 2,500 staff. So because of the high level of care and the services being offered to the high-end guests. So that means 2,500 people are employed at an average in a cruise ship. So this is a huge window of opportunity. And to a large extent, Philippines has made use of this opportunity. You'll find a lot of Filipinos in the cruise vessels across the world. So, but that is an area where India also has a lot of potential. Now, aligned with the port sector, we also have Cochin Shipyard. So, a lot of people confuse between the port and the shipyard. While port is the gate, in fact, the word portus means gate in Latin. So port is the gate, whereas the shipyard is a place where ships are built. Now, Cochin Shipyard is the largest shipyard in the country. It's a very profit-making institution. It has a lot of important vessels have come out of the shipyard. They also need ship repairing. So that is one institution which you should be aware of. Another institution in Cochin you should be aware of is the Indian Maritime University. The Indian Maritime University offers a wide variety of courses in the various sectors I just now mentioned. So we have the IMU campus in Cochin. Next, we have the Inland Waterways Authority of India. Inland Waterways Authority also has an office in Cochin. So they actually cater to the inland waterways or the national waterways. And inland waterways also has a lot of potential in terms of cargo transport. As I said, the modal shift from roads, we want to move the cargo from the roads to the waterways. They also have a lot of tourism potential for internal cruises. So while we look at international cruises, they're highly expensive. India has, and especially Kerala has, a lot of potential for river cruises and backwater cruises. So these are some of the areas which are closely aligned to port. There are certain risks associated with areas in the shipping industry and maritime industry. The global warming, we all know that global warming leads to increase in sea levels. In fact, the first segment which gets affected by these climatic changes is the voyaging community, the seafaring community, because the sea gets, when there is an increase in the level of the water in the seas, it becomes more difficult to navigate. Also, there are pollution issues even within a port. We always have to be extremely careful about the cargo that is being handled, whether there will be an oil spill, especially we are an oil handling port because of BPCL, the Bharat Petroleum Company. There can be chemicals. You might have heard of Nushi Nalini. Those of you who are keen on reading the newspapers might have heard of a naphtha-containing vessel called Nushi Nalini, which was docked just outside Cochin port limit. So there was always this danger that this vessel will come and hit against the Cochin port, and there will be a huge calamity because it was a naphtha-containing vessel. And seafaring community always there is the issue is that they're away from their families maybe for long periods, 6 months. In fact, now during these COVID times, you might have read about seafarers being away from their family, overstaying their duty period. So there is always a lot of issues, but if you can see these issues as challenges, this is a sector with a lot of potential, with a lot of growth. In fact, undoubtedly, the sector is seeing a lot of growth, though this growth has been hampered to a large extent by COVID. I think I would like to speak about, I'll take 5 minutes. Tiara, if it is okay with you, can I take 5 minutes on COVID and the impact?
Yes, no.
So basically, the COVID pandemic, most of you have heard of the COVID pandemic and its impact after the lockdown. But Cochin Port, we have been aware of it since December because we have vessels coming from China. So we had to be extra cautious to ensure that when these vessels come in, our pilot who goes on board, our mooring staff, our port health officer, these people are protected. So we had started using PPEs from January onwards. And as far as the impact of COVID on the port, there has been a terrible impact, I will say. In January, February, March, what happened is because of the COVID in China. Now, China is India's greatest trade partner. When it comes to imports, China tops the list. The maximum of imports come from China. So because there was a decrease in the industrial activity in China, our cargo in Cochin Port decreased. So that happened in the months of January and February. But March, April, we got it. The hinterland got it. So as on today, there is a huge impact on Cochin Port. There's a huge impact on Cochin Refinery. In refinery, because the vessels were not flying, nobody needs petrol and diesel. So their refinery is working at around 30% capacity. So when the refinery shuts down, so basically whenever there is a lull in the hinterland industry, automatically what happens is the port cargo comes down. Cochin Port cargo, in fact, Cochin Port was a profitable port till 2000, around 2009. Then there was a steady, it went down. But in the year 16-17, we sort of turned around and we sort of became break even again. But now, thanks to COVID, this year will be a very challenging year. The first half, we are witnessing a steep fall in the cargo. But having said that, I still feel that Cochin Port is fortunate because two of the other major ports, Mumbai and Calcutta, COVID, 3 persons in Mumbai port died out of COVID. In Calcutta also, a lot of people are affected. So that way, thanks to the support of my employees, we have ensured that the illness has not come through the port of Cochin, and our employees are safe, at least for the time being, they are safe. So that is the present COVID situation. We are hoping and praying that it comes to an end at the earliest. So that is by way of introduction, Tiara. So now you can take over.
Yes, ma'am. That was a very detailed session from your side. And we have very few questions related to the industry as well as your professional and change of roles. So, shall we start with the question, ma'am?
Yes, yes.
Yes. So, the first question is related to employee attrition level. So, does the COVID-19 affect the employee attrition in the industry? And I'm clubbing one or two questions together. Generally, what is the rate of employee attrition in the industry? Or is it really a challenge or is it existing in this industry? Is the question.
As far as the port is concerned, we really don't have such an issue at all because port employees are permanent employees, so this issue of attrition does not apply to the port. But there are several industries in and around Cochin Port which employ migrant laborers to a large extent. Because as you must be aware, the actual work, the actual hard work is done by migrant laborers. And as on today, many of the works are being held up because of absence of migrant laborers. So we are hoping that they will come back and that will stabilize. But the local people, there is no attrition. Employment is at normal levels. Migrant labor, we have an issue. We are hoping that they come back. A lot of civil projects, even within the port, because we have one or two civil projects we have taken, construction of a berth for Indian Navy and Coast Guard. But those works have been held up because of the COVID issue.
Port Trust taking any serious step regarding this?
Tiara, I missed your question. Can you repeat that?
Okay. We have a great potential in inland cargo transportation. Is Cochin Port Trust taking any serious steps regarding this?
As I just mentioned in my talk, inland waterways has a huge potential. It definitely has a huge potential because it's a more less polluting, cost-effective method of cargo transport. But actually, that comes under it's entirely different department, the Inland Waterways Authority of India. It's after water transport. But Cochin Port stands to gain a lot by development of inland waterways. In fact, there is an inland port called Kottayam Port. Maybe people from Kottayam will be aware of that. So with the big newspaper houses, Manorama and Madhurga, so their newsprint comes to Cochin Port, and from there, from Cochin Port, it is taken to Kottayam Port through the inland waterways route. But we also need to develop further. In fact, Kerala has other ports, other minor ports like Jaipur, Vizhinjam. Vizhinjam is anyway under development. Ayikil, Kollam. So, for example, let us take the cashew industry of Kollam. So, from Cochin, raw cashew, as on today, goes by road. So, can we sort of change it into the coastal route and take it to Kollam? Can the coffee from North Kerala, Wayanad, Kushalnagar come from Jaipur port to Cochin? So these are areas we are exploring further. Again, this actually comes under the state level ports, come under an entity called the Kerala Maritime Board. Kerala Maritime Board controls all the minor ports of the state. So we are consistently in talks with them to improve upon these routes, because improving these routes means our efficiency will also go up. So definitely this is an area with a lot of potential.
The question is from Roy Francis. How can we implement alternative power or coal mining concept to make it a complete e-port?
Oh, that's a nice question from a person I presume knows something about ports.
Yes.
Yes, this coal dining is something which we are also for the benefit of others who do not understand what this is. See, when a ship comes to a port, the ship's engines are running and ship continues to utilize the fuel, that is the diesel fuel. Now, by coal mining, what we are doing is that we are providing an alternate fuel from the port, which is a greener fuel. Electricity is provided from the port, provided we get that facility. As on today, 3 berths of Cochin Port we are providing this facility, and we want to further enhance it. So this is something which is a very important milestone for us in our endeavor to make Cochin an entirely green port.
Thank you, Roy, for such a great question. And the other question is related to the training and development activities. So, is there any training and development activities or training programs for upskilling the participants or those who are aspiring to take up this profession? So, what are the training programs or upskilling courses provided through Cochin Port Trust?
Okay. So basically, Cochin Port itself is not a training institution. However, we support internships. So suppose you are a marine engineer or even a mechanical engineer, in all our areas, we support internships. So somebody can come and somebody can spend a few months in the port. It is not structured as on today because we do not have that kind of numbers coming in. But whoever comes in, we attach him or her to the relevant section in the port, and at the end of the internship, he is provided with a certificate. Now, earlier we also used to have it as part of the Apprenticeship Act, where it is more, what do you call it, institutionalized, but unfortunately we are not getting enough students for that, sufficient numbers for that. So that is one thing. And number two, we also run a hospital. A Cochin Port hospital is being run, and Okay, now to be frank with you, Cochin Port once had around 8,000 employees. Okay, that is the golden days of Cochin Port, where there was a lot of money. Then, when the financials came down, as I said, it was in the red from 2010 to 15-16. So then what happened is we did not have money to support our employees itself, and there were a lot of staff shortages. So a very good idea that our port hospital came up with was to start a nursing school. So we actually run a nursing school. So these nurses, while they get their education, the Cochin Port Hospital also gains their services. So that is one sector where we actually give a degree. So that is a training program we do here. But definitely, and even in fire services and our piloting, we give hands-on experience training. In fact, the ITI of Kalamasheri sends its fire students to Cochin Port for industrial training. So that is the way we collaborate with these organizations.
Okay. So, ma'am, the other question is from Jyoti. Cochin Port does not feature in the top 50 ports in the world. Sri Lanka is ranked 24th, UP is in 29th rank, even though it is bigger than Colombo Port. What is lacking in Kochi Port that it does not feature in the top 50s?
This is a very, very good question, I would say. And in fact, this is how our new generation should think. That, why is my country not not developing to world standards? Now, Colombo Port, the depth, the draft, Colombo Port can cater to vessels having a draft of 18 meters. It's a really deep port. Cochin Port, as on today, can cater to vessels having 14.5 meter draft. So basically, it is a more shallow port. And always international ports prefer ports with greater depth. So that is one limitation which is preventing Cochin Port from developing into its true potential. And why we are not doing the dredging? Dredging is a very capital intensive process. In Colombo, it is done by the federal government. But the way we have in India is that every port is a commercial body on its own. So the port has to find out of its own resources do this dredging. So as on today, one issue is the dredging. The second issue is the high cost set. If you compare the cost between Sri Lanka and Kochi, we are far more expensive. That is because of the high employee cost. As I mentioned earlier, we had huge numbers of employees. So these 8,000 employees have now become pensioners. So in a way, we are like a KSRTC. So we have to give the pension, we have to give. So all this makes us non-competitive vis-a-vis Colombo. So this is, it's not just Cochin, all the old ports, Cochin, Chennai, Calcutta, Bombay, all the old ports are saddled with high employee costs. Whereas the new ports, in fact, there is the Ennore port near Chennai, it's a new port, it's a greenfield. And the same cargo that Cochin Port handles, Ennore Port handles, with an employee strength of just 80. So everything else is outsourced. So we need such models of port management. Unfortunately, with my employees, I can't one by one just send them off. So that is one big constraint. But specifically, Government of India is also aware of this particular comparison. Government of India is also saying, if Colombo can do it, why can't we do it? So we have raised that these are the issues. We need support for dredging. We need support to pay this huge pension. So Government of India is actually mulling over as to what is to be done. We are looking forward to some capital infusion from government.
Thank you, ma'am. The other question is related to your personal side. We heard that you are a doctor by academic or by training. What made you to change or decide to take up civil service?
Do you think a doctor will be able to speak to you about ports or logistics or cargo or draft? So I think I have always been a person who's excited by knowledge. I like learning new things. Even at this age, new knowledge excites me. So the administrative service is one area where you have an exposure to different sectors, you keep learning all the time, and more importantly, I think fundamentally, in fact, when this question was posed to me during the IAS interview also, I said, look, a doctor can cure or treat a disease, whereas the real cause of the disease, that is, in fact, I gave the example of a case of diarrhea. The child comes to your OP with diarrhea. Now, what does the doctor do? The doctor gives ORS, the doctor manages the diarrhea, the doctor cures the patient. Now, what actually led to diarrhea? It might be lack of drinking water, it might be lack of sanitation. So, that can't be cured by the doctor. That requires an administrative cure. So, that was so your canvas is much bigger, the opportunities are numerous, so it is a far more exciting profession. So that is why I opted for
Okay, thank you, ma'am. The next question is related to the price hike. Is there any chances of price hike post-COVID related to cargo charges, ferry services, cruise charges, etc.?
Actually, it is going to be the reverse because ports are slashing their rates in order to attract cargo. Because cargo is, overall internationally production has come down, so we need to attract ships. My traffic has come down by 50, so I need to attract more vessels, and for that, we are actually thinking of discounts this year. So normally every year the ports increase their rates. So this year there has been no increase. The COVID period we have been given waiver and deferment. A lot of facilities are being given to promote the industry.
Again, one more question related to your profession. Being in the administrative services, what are the ways you contribute to the healthcare sector? What are the ways you contribute to the healthcare sector? Are you still active in healthcare sector?
Actually, before coming to port, I was in SIDC, and before that, I had a 3-year stint as the mission director of the National Rural Health Mission, which is now presently called the National Health Mission. So that was a very good time time where I was interacting with doctors, and so basically I was on home turf at that point of time. That was a very pleasant experience in that point of time. But even now, during the COVID times, we have been able to manage COVID, ensuring that our employees do not get affected, in spite of the fact that we handle huge quantities of cargo from ships of foreign countries. Plus, we handled from the Maldives, you might have read in the papers, around 700 expatriates who have come from Maldives, out of which some of them have turned positive also. So while handling such a health crisis, certainly my health knowledge has come into great help. Plus, in running the Port Trust Hospital also, it is being put to use. But in general, let me assure you that health knowledge is not of much use in many of the sectors I've worked in. But again, I will say that my medical experience has been much beyond technical health knowledge. It has been beyond knowledge of drugs. It has been beyond knowledge of surgeries and treatments. Medical profession makes you empathetic. It makes you feel or understand the pain of the person sitting across. And that is a virtue, or that is a strength which I've had throughout in my career, which has made me more sensitive or better administrator.
The other question is from Reshmi. Kerala is a land of rivers. Can government do projects to connect all the rivers to reduce the traffic and for speedy cargo transportation?
That is exactly what is envisaged under the waterways method. So, whichever are the navigable channels. So, in fact, when it comes to navigability, there are two important factors. Many of our rivers, there is a lot of siltation also. Let us understand what are the hindrances to it. In concept, this is definitely doable and definitely needs to be done. But the two issues are, I hope the connection is live, Tiara.
Yes, ma'am, you can go ahead. I think Tiara is facing some technical issues. You may please continue, ma'am. Yeah.
So basically, there are two challenges when it comes to utilizing our rivers. One is the heavy amounts of siltation. Now, there's a lot of siltation happening as part of the monsoons because of the monsoon runoff is very high. A lot of soil because of soil erosion, because the tree cover has come down and there is heavy siltation. So that is one disadvantage. That means to make our rivers navigable, we might have to do some amount of dredging. Number two is we have built a lot of bridges. We have built a lot of bridges here and there. So that has also affected the navigability in very many places. But having given these constraints, the Inland Waterways Authority of India is looking into what can be done. In fact, they have identified certain sectors in Kerala. That is the National Waterways 3 and 4. They have identified some sectors there and are trying to work on these. And another opportunity, as I mentioned earlier, is cruise tourism, river cruises. In fact, that I think river cruise along the Bharataputra, river cruise along the Periyar. These are things maybe local entrepreneurs. It does not require government intervention. We can actually think of such kind of new innovative aspects.
And the other question is there any way to reduce the dredging cost at Cochin Port? And how Cochin Port can compete with the upcoming natural port Vizhinjam?
Okay. Again, this is a question which we are also grappling with almost every day, because the dredging cost, Cochin is the port which spends the maximum amount of dredging next to Calcutta port. But Calcutta port, it is subsidized by Government of India and the Government of West Bengal. So they are not really bothered about that because it doesn't go out of the port's pocket. But Cochin goes out of our pocket, and every year, earlier it had gone up to 140 crores a year. But over the years, consistently, we have been trying to bring it down. And this year, I have spent around 84 crores. Now, though it is much lesser than what used to be spent earlier, 84 crores nevertheless is a huge amount. And it is because of this high amount of 84 crore that my costs are high. My vessel-related charges are high, and I become non-competitive in comparison to Colombo and many other places. And Vizhinjam, on the other hand, has got a natural, because it has got a rocky bottom, it does not need much of maintenance dredging apart from the initial dredging. So Vizhinjam is a very heavy contender. It will be a very heavy competitor for Cochin Port, especially in the transshipment. I mentioned the locational advantage of Cochin. Now, the locational advantage of Cochin is even more so present for me. So Vizhinjam has now some, it has not developed at the speed at which it could have developed, but once it develops fully, a lot of transshipment cargo will go from Cochin to Vizhinjam. We are anticipating that. However, we'll still stay afloat because we have some EXIM cargo plus the refinery cargoes anyway here. Since the refinery can't be relocated, we'll be having that cargo. But yes, we will stand to lose once Vizhinjam fully develops.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. And the next question is asked by Sindhu Johnson. Why Cochin Port is not an export processing zone like Mumbai?
This is also, in fact, a lot of these questions are questions which we have asked ourselves, and we have, you'll be happy to know that DP World is a company which runs ICTT, International Container Transshipment Terminal, and they have evinced interest in coming up with first with a free trade warehousing zone with some amount of manufacturing activity. Because Kerala, in general, if you see, manufacturing has certain challenges. I'm sure we are all, you must have interacted with people from the industries department also. When it comes to manufacturing, we are not the best. There are a lot of issues in ease of doing business. We are way down in the ranking. We have our own labor issues. I think the less said about it, the better. Because of all these reasons, manufacturing, there are challenges. So what we are intending to do is first a free trade warehousing. So the warehousing, because we are mainly an importer state, so there is a lot of scope for warehousing. So we will start off with warehousing and some amount of value addition process, and later further develop into a proper manufacturing. So already the proposal is in the pipeline, and we have given it to Ministry government for approval.
Ma'am, with one or two questions, we'll wind up. The next question is asked by Sudarsh Sudhagaran. Can Outer Harbour solve dredging issues? Will it become a reality?
Outer Harbour, yes, that was a project envisaged as the solution for dredging issue. Because once you move your harbour outside, then you have this maintenance dredging cost will come down, the siltation will automatically get covered. So that is a very good solution. Only thing is, it requires around 4,000 crores at that point of time. When the study was done around 6 years back, the project cost was 4,000 crores. So finding that amount, that is the real issue. So project is before the ministry, but given the heavy investment, they are also, whether it is cost effective, while definitely it's good for Cochin, whether there will be that kind of result or yield, whether it is actually a bankable or a cost benefit ratio wise, whether it is a good project, that is being examined. That is why we have not been able to go further.
And one last question. I'll club two questions together. What are the job roles and qualifications usually in demand? And let me know the qualification and method of application for the job, the process of applying.
Job role and qualification of which post?
Qualification usually in demand in the industry, maritime industry.
Okay. So, as I mentioned, there are there are the port jobs, and there is the navigation or the shipping jobs. In the port, the kind of work we have, you need engineers so that the port machinery, the port infrastructure is maintained. So there are options for engineers here. But having said that, I can tell you that generally ports in India are not going in for much of recruitment because of the general policy is outsourced to the extent possible. But having said that, there is some dire need, and a sector where there will be always opportunities is engineering sector. So civil engineers, marine engineers, mechanical engineers, electrical engineers. So these four sectors, there will be need every now and then. So their recruitments will happen. Plus, if you look at the vessels, we have at the lower level, you have the seamen, the Sarang, the Laskar, people like that, plus the fitters and welders. These are the ITI basic certificate jobs. And beyond that, we have the seagoing certificate, maybe IMU or some other organization will give you. So for the marine sector, we will be requiring that kind of qualification.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. So due to time constraints, I think it's time for us to wind up. And I ensure all the participants that all the other questions received. We have a lot of questions received, and all these questions will be answered through offline and will be shared later. And over to you, ma'am, for your concluding notes.
Yeah, so at the outset, let me tell you that normally my speeches are far more interesting. This, I know, because the topic itself is dry. The topic of port sector is not the most interesting topic. I tried my level best to make it as interesting as possible, though it is a very dry sector. But I'm really impressed by the kind of knowledge you have in such a sector. Some of the students have come out with good questions. People who understand the sector only can ask such questions. So it was a very good experience for me, and I'm hoping that this interest in these dry topics are actually essential for the development and progress of the country. I hope you maintain your scientific temper, you maintain your spirit of inquisitiveness, and you are genuinely concerned for the development of the country. Wish each one of you the very best, and I hope and pray that this COVID challenge goes off and we can have a live interaction at some point. Thank you.
Yes. So let me take this opportunity to thank Beena ma'am, who delivered a detailed and interesting session right from the history and evolution of Cochin Port Trust, various services provided by the trust, to the opportunities available, and to the latest updates from the maritime industry. Expressing our sincere gratitude for your valuable time on behalf of myself and Higher Education Department, I thank all the participants as well for their questions and active participation. Thank you, ma'am, and looking forward to your cooperation. All the participants, have a safe and healthy days ahead.